In the last video, I talked briefly about the hero's journey, or the monomyth as it's also called, and I spoke briefly about how it can be broadly applied to most stories, about how it almost universally can be, and I might have overstated that somewhat. This video is going to talk about the hero's journey in greater detail, and alongside that talk about some of the criticisms that have been leveled against it and how it may not be the monomyth that it purports to be. Firstly, the easiest way of teaching the monomyth is to just go through a film, go through it like beat by beat, and apply every step to the film as it goes. Now, there is one specific filmmaker that very, very heavily stuck to the hero's journey and proudly says so, and the thing is, I've been playing a little game with myself and going, how long can I spend not having watched any of those films all the way through? But I guess for you guys, I have to break this 26-year record of never having watched a Star Wars movie. So here is the hero's journey as it applies to A New Hope, and we're going to be using the 12-step simplified structure that was coined by Christopher Vogler, as opposed to the full method, since, well, some of them are a bit redundant. So the first pin on the 12 stages of the hero's journey is the ordinary world. Now, the planet of Tatooine may not be ordinary to us, but it most definitely is to Luke. This is shown to us by, well, the completely ordinary way that he interacts with it. It's definitely normal for Luke to be around here. Step 2 is the call to adventure, in which Luke is called to his adventure by R2-D2 and Ben Kenobi. Firstly, Luke triggers R2-D2's message from Princess Leia and is intrigued by both her and her message. Then Kenobi suggests that he should come with him to Alderaan, which leads to the next stage, the refusal of the call, in which Luke says he couldn't possibly leave his aunt and uncle. Then the meeting of the mentor should usually go here, but it happened a little bit earlier because it can't be perfect. Step 4 then is the crossing of the threshold, in which the loss of his aunt and uncle drives Luke to pledge to go with Obi-Wan to Alderaan. Step 5, tests allies and enemies, is exactly what it sounds like. We meet allies in the form of Han and Chewie, we encounter enemies in the form of stormtroopers, and Luke passes the test in blocking the lasers blindfolded. We also learn the rules of this new world, in which case being the rebels, the Empire, and all that conflict. Step 6 is the approach, in which the plan of attack is made, but setbacks also happen to hinder the hero. In Star Wars, the plan to defeat the Galactic Empire is to bring the Death Star plans to Alderaan so that Princess Leia's father can take them to the rebellion. However, when they arrive within the system, the planet is destroyed. They come across the Death Star and are pulled in by its tractor beam, now trapped within the metaphorical belly of the beast. Then after that, things go from bad to worse with the ordeal, in which crises are added and stacked with a potential life or death situation. In Star Wars, this occurs when Luke, Han, and Chewie must save Leia, while Obi-Wan sacrifices himself in a battle with Darth Vader. After this comes the reward, and in typical folktale style, our hero saves the princess from the Dark Lord. The anti-penultimate step in the process is the road back, in which the hero returns to a safe place briefly before the final climax, facing conflict on their way there. In this film, Luke and the gang are headed to the rebel base with their new plans when they're pursued by incoming TIE fighters. They realize the Galactic Empire must be tracking them, but they have no choice but to race against time to take the plans back to the rebellion and prepare for final battle. After this is the resurrection, which is the final climactic battle. The whole space battle, Death Star thing. Finally, the return, in which the heroes return triumphant. The hero's journey speaks of them bringing back an elixir that they disperse amongst the normal world to aid them. This elixir is the knowledge that the Death Star has been destroyed and that the rebels are safe. So that's that. Much like the last video, I used a very obvious example this time, but with a little thought and some generous interpretations of words like supernatural, you can apply this to pretty much everything. That's the theory. There's been more than a little criticism of the monomyth theory. In an essay for Rethinking Schools titled Why I Don't Teach the Hero's Journey, Michelle Kenny speaks about how this journey is too focused on an idealized individual changing the world, and how that can be damaging to students, especially in the modern climate.
I want all my students to not only recognise themselves in their reading, but also to learn about the world beyond, acknowledge their responsibilities to each other, and learn how to come together to shape the world that they live in. Because of its singular focus on the development of the individual, the hero's journey does nothing to help our students progress toward the goal of becoming well-educated critical thinkers and thoughtful citizens of democracy. Young people need to know that meaningful social change comes about through social movements rather than the actions of the lone heroic individual they may learn about in traditional history classes. It was only through the work of committed groups that women in the United States gained the right to vote, and African Americans the right to equal employment opportunities, education and housing, struggles that are still ongoing.
I had never considered the shortcomings of the hero's journey until it was pointed out to me in the comments of my last video, but this alone speaks volumes. Focusing on stories of lone chosen ones and heroes plays a big part in downplaying the importance of communities. Even ensemble pieces like the Avengers or Guardians of the Galaxy aren't about communities, but rather teams of heroes that basically just serve as parts of a single larger hero. And it's not a team of heroes or a single hero that's going to save us from anything happening in the real world. No one man is going to save the planet from, well, everything that's going on right now. It's class consciousness, it's community that'll save us. Look at successful victories through time, women getting the vote, the whole poll tax thing in the UK. These happen because communities come together, not because of a lone hero. But this isn't just the lack of teaching about community that people criticize the hero's journey for, it's the heroes themselves that are depicted. Filmmaker Noel L. Franklin commented on how the hero's journey is one of privilege. She says that in all these stories, the hero is coming from an ordinary world and already knows how to play by the rules and has mentors and goddesses to help conquer any obstacle. She contrasts this to something she calls the heroine's journey.
Regardless, if the protagonist is male or female, a heroine does not start out with privilege. For example, a male protagonist on a heroine's journey would be an underprivileged man who is also oppressed by inequality. This is the world he will return to in the end without a solution. They're not really bringing back an elixir, they're navigating our patriarchal society with unequal pay and inequalities. In the final chapter, they may end up on equal footing, but when you have oppressed groups, all you can hope for is to get half as far by working twice as hard. Alice in Wonderland and Dorothy and Oz as heroes only return to the status quo. When they win, they get to go home. Great, you're home. Nothing's changed. It's not really a huge deal, you know?
How many of these heroes portrayed in the hero's journey are white men? How many of them are straight white men? The story structure that purports to be the monomyth, something that can apply to everyone, seems to only apply to those at the top of the power structure. And when you're at the top of the power structure, it's easy to forget that everyone below you exists, or that they count as human. So of course it would be purported as the monomyth, the one story. But that is changing. People from less privileged backgrounds are getting their stories heard and proving that the monomyth isn't as unifying as its mostly straight white male theorists claim it to be. And this isn't even considering the stories coming from outside the Western English-speaking world. The monomyth doesn't even begin to encompass those stories. So the hero's journey is an outdated way of looking at stories, and it's from a very limited purview, but that doesn't make it entirely useless. It can still be used to examine and study the plethora of stories that were created by the privileged, and in turn, figure out how they think and how they see the world around them. But it is hardly a monomyth, it is hardly a universal story plan. And if all the stories that you know and love can fit nicely into the hero's journey, I'd recommend you expand your horizons somewhat. And thank you for watching this video. If you like it, please do click the like and subscribe buttons, and comments are really good for the algorithm if you want to help out more. And if you have some spare cash, please do visit my Patreon like the wonderful people on screen now. And a special shout out goes to the fresh cheese bags of the month: Alex Bryson, Clouds Haberberg, Ethan Safron, Horse of Many Names, Karl Raade, Logan Myers, Mulloy, neuroticanarchy, swishyclang, the Magpie Magus, What Would Jedido, and our 3 executive producers, Tom Dolan, Kozmosaur, and the flippity-flop philanthropist himself, Edward Valentine. Love you, bye.